Welcome to another episode of the Better Decisions podcast. My name is David Siddons and I am your host. And I'm doing a podcast today that I've been meaning to do for a really, really long time. I'm doing it with my wife. I should say that first and foremost as a caveat, who is the owner and operator of Design Solutions, a very well-known, very well-established interior design firm in Miami. And we're shooting this in our home because it seems like the most appropriate place to shoot. So, Lou, for the audience out there, can you introduce yourself, who you are, what your business is, what you do, and then we'll chat a little bit about the interior design world and what's been going on. And
Of course. I'm Luciana Fragali, the owner of Design Solutions, an interior design firm that has been in business for almost 20 years.
Okay. So how did you start the firm? Because a lot of people just see the name Design Solutions now, and you've been around and you've done so many projects.
Well, I started Design Solutions nearly 20 years ago. Design is a passion, and I just realized that I had so much to do in terms of offering people what I had learned, and I worked for several companies as a project manager or an assistant and a designer. And then I realized that what I wanted to do and the way I wanted to serve my clients was a little bit different from the way that I was operating under somebody else.
Yeah.
So in order to do the way that I believed that was the right way to do, I had to open my own business, which I didn't know back then, that opening my own business would be not only being a designer, but also having so many other hats. And so it was pretty intense, to say the least, because, when you open your own company, you have to basically, first of all, be a business administrator, and then you go into what you really want to do. So,
but your firm, sorry to interject, because as you're listening to this, it's just Lou talking, but you have a team, and it's a really big team.
Now I do.
And you can't see behind the camera, there's a whole bunch of people all standing around us, all kind of like looking at us and smiling.
I have a family.
Yeah.
I say it's a family. It's not a team only. I spend more time with them than I spend with you.
That's probably true, actually.
So it's a great team, and nowadays it works amazingly.
How many people in the team, just for the audience and they know, break it down?
Now, I think 18 people.
And how are they broken down into divisions and what they do?
Well, that's an interesting question, because throughout the years, we have to solve problems every day, all day long. And that's the number one thing that designers do, rather than only designing. But so I tried to accommodate the company to cater my clients. And so I had to make some changes throughout the years. But nowadays we have the first department, which is the most important one. I call it's the sales department, but it's not really selling anything. It's more educating the client on how we operate, what kind of services we offer, how much we charge, explaining everything in details. And that's the marketing and sales department. And then we have the teams, which we have three, depending on the time of we have actually 4 teams that they're designers, but we allocate the project according to the complexity of the project. So if it's only interior design, or if it's going to be interior design or designing a home from scratch, there are different complexities involved in design, and depending on the profile of the client, we allocate that project to a certain group. And also we have a buyer's department, which is crucial, super important, which is the team that buys and follows up with deliveries and all the 10,000 issues that go with it. We have the financial department, which is a team that only takes care of the numbers. Once the numbers are established by the designers with the client. And then we have the staging department, which is finalizing.
So if you can summarize really quickly, because there's a lot of moving parts here. So you've got a sales department, you've got a group of designers,
Yes.
key designers. You've got like CAD drawers and people who are drawing.
Yeah, those are part of the teams.
Okay.
The designers. So the design team is composed by the main designer, the head designer of the team, the assistant, and the CAD drafter. So every team has a drafter, and that drafter only works for the projects that are that belong to that specific team.
Yeah.
So in that way, we try to minimize errors. That's the biggest goal that I have in life today. I mean, in terms of creativity, you're either born with it or you're not, in my opinion, my honest opinion. So the designers that I have today, they are, in my opinion, obviously, because they work for me, they're very creative, but that's just like 10% of it.
Yeah, it's the complexity. I guess that the whole purpose of this question is that the complexity of interior design is a lot more than just being able to design and draw and come up with nice ideas.
That's 10% of it.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say, I don't know percentage-wise, to be honest, but yeah, you can have creativity and it's great, and you can be able to put things together. But there's so much more that has to be done. And that's when the team comes in, and the designer is creating the project with me always, because I'm always creating with them, with the different teams. And once that creativity is done, which is the fun of the project, then we have to move into the technical part of the project. And that's when it comes, all the problems start appearing, because we create something and obviously, it's beautiful and, that has many different characteristics. And then the team starts really, cutting down to the chase. What needs to be done for this beautiful design to happen? Is this beautiful design within the client's budget? Is that going to be done in time? Do we have suppliers in America that can produce this, or even overseas? But if it's overseas, do we have control over that? Has that ever been done, or it's something completely new, which happens a lot at Design Solutions? They come up with great ideas that have never been executed before, and then we have to actually find, the source of it, how we're going to make it happen.
The logistics of putting it together, and if you're wondering, we got flashes going off in the background, there's a reason for that. And we're sitting here in our house. What we haven't said is
David was born for it, and I wasn't. So just so all of you know, this is not my forte.
But the design side is, and hopefully this is going to come through, and we're going to do some B-roll as you go through. So watch to the end of the podcast, because we're going to actually, through it, show pictures of projects that Design Solutions have done. Yes. And we're going to show images of our home that we built. Yeah. This is key, because the photos that are going off in the background, the flashes that are going off, is a result for the house being photographed for a publication. And what went in to create this was not an overnight transition. This took a while. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, honestly, for so long, honey, is because we go through so much in each other's worlds, in real estate and in interior design. Yes. And it's so often misunderstood. 100%. People think that we run around and it's all very glamorous and sexy. And they see the end result.
Yeah, I don't know if you get that, but when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I'm an interior designer. Oh my God, I love it. It's so much fun. And I'm like, which world do you live in?
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I love what I do, but
it's more firefighting. I mean, firefighting and problem solving and trying to make the impossible possible.
Are you a psychologist as well?
I feel like half the time, we spend a lot of time having these conversations after work, coming home, sitting in the kitchen behind us, trying to, deconstruct the psychology of our clients for the reason of trying to help them and get into their head to figure out how can we help them best.
Because, they don't, sometimes, a lot of the times, they don't know what they want, right? I don't know about you.
Well, yeah, that's for sure.
I mean,
you don't know what you don't know.
That it happens to you as well, that sometimes the client comes to you and he says, I want a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom apartment on the water in Miami Beach, and I want it to be renovated. But sometimes what they are requesting is not necessarily what they can afford or what they want to pay for. Sometimes it's not even about being able to afford, but it's more, being willing to spend that amount. I think that Miami had a long history of being on sale for a while.
Yeah.
We were totally behind the other markets like New York and LA and San Francisco and many other parts of the US. And now we're catching up. And people say, oh, it's a bubble, we're catching up. No, we're not catching up. It's just a bubble that is about to explode. Why are we going to explode? I mean, this is one of the best states in America. Miami is one of the best cities in America. And we're catching up. It was about time. So I say, I think that the unrealistic expectations is what creates a lot of disappointment.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it happens to you, but then,
of course.
You deal with it. You don't really have a problem because you have a number, it's the market price. And if that person doesn't buy it, somebody else is going to buy it.
Yeah.
With us, it's a little bit different, because it's not that general. It's not out there for people to see. There's no MLS to show how much design costs.
But there's a very big connection, obviously, between being a realtor and being a designer, in so much as the clients that we're dealing with and the process of what the end result is. And I think that really high level, and again, to be clear, you are a luxury interior designer. I am a luxury real estate broker. The definition of luxury and the recognition of what it is and how to find it is very misunderstood too, because you assume, okay, Miami is a very sexy city. There are beautiful homes everywhere. There's beautiful interior design and easily accessible interior design everywhere. That is just not true. No. It's not. And when we go to projects, and I go to dozens of houses every week, and I've seen your projects, and just to be clear, the Design Solutions projects do stand head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd. And people will come in, and I know they do this with you, and they'll say, okay, this is my budget. And they say, well, this seems like a lot to spend. And I wanted to get into the cost conversation in this process, because in my mind, the interior design is not an expense, it is an investment.
I'm glad that you think like that.
Well, I mean, you've helped me learn that in the process.
A lot of your buyers that are, because we're in the luxury market, a lot of your buyers they are business people, right? Mm-hmm. And business people, usually they want to make a smart investment, a wise investment. But when it comes to your personal home, they have wives, they have kids. And the reality is that the rest of the family gets emotionally attached or involved or impressed with what they see. And sometimes, with our projects at least, because of the way they look in and they cater not only that family, but they can be appreciated for next buyers and future buyers.
Of course.
Because of the level of detail and the craftsmanship and just the
you
way
create something unique, Lou.
Yes.
That's what Design Solutions does.
I don't know how, I'm very humbled, and you know that. And
you play it down a lot. You play your design down a lot,
no,
and obviously,
I don't play it down. I'm just humbled because I know that there are a lot of amazing people out there, and I don't want to, say that we are amazing. I just think that there is if you ask me now, what is the difference between us and other designers, and I'm not, naming anybody, I just think that we care. We genuinely care about what people feel, what they want, what their needs and expectations are. And it's just a matter of getting involved with them. And every client is a client, and every client that we have in the office, we really listen to them. And I like to be listened.
They become friends. I've seen it with clients. You get very...
We had dinner with one of them yesterday that we did a few years ago. But I think that I like to be listened. And I'm sure you do too. When you're buying something and you have your cars, you love your cars. So you go to a store and you want to buy, the toys that you like for some reason. You want to be listened. You want people to understand, and they are going to read your emotions, and it's an emotional purchase, because we have to realize that every purchase that is not for survival is an emotional purchase, in my opinion.
It's a good way of putting it. But
not for the investors.
Yes,
right?
That was the point.
That's
I guess.
The investors, at some point, they're going to sell it to an emotional buyer.
So let's put it into perspective with a story, because sometimes it can get too abstract. But I want to use a working example for this conversation, which is something that I've observed, and I know you've gone through this with a client when they say, "I've got to spend, let's just give you an arbitrary number. Let's say $1 million or $2 million for a huge project," and they're like, "Well, I'm going to spend this amount of money on the project here, and it seems a lot." And what I've noticed, and we have a working example, there was a condo that I sold. I sold the pre-construction condo to a client, and then they hired you. They came in, they did the interior design, and the value return on the investment of the interior design was 100%. Not talking about appreciation of the market or anything like that, but purely if you took two identical products, which I did in this case, the one that had your interior design flair to it, and had you guys had done the work on it, now was valued at what the unit was selling on the other place, plus the design work, plus another 100% on top of that. So the normal unit was selling at, let's say, 7.5, and your company, this owner, had put in $1 million more into this unit than the comparable one.
1.3, actually.
1.3. But the upside, the financial upside, was
you could have sold for 12 million.
It was, yeah, it was two, and it was another $2 million on top of that. And I've seen this,
and that's
not once.
not an ordinary situation. Let's make it clear.
Well, you know what?
But I mean, the way the market is right now, it may be the case.
But right? it sounds right. It kind of is a normal situation, because every deal, every property that I've seen, and again, I don't just want to talk about it as, because we're talking about interior design.
I have a question for you, because I think it's a good question. Now I'm interviewing.
Okay, please go ahead.
So let's say you go to a Porsche dealer, right? It's silver and it has, a beautiful beige interior, but you know what you like in a car, right? It has all the whistles and bells and this and that, and usually you have to order your car.
Yes.
You don't just go to the car dealer.
Don't buy off the shelf.
And you buy, not you, I mean, a lot of people do, but you have to order your car. So it's pretty much the same, but then but let's say you get there and your dream car is ready to be purchased. Would you pay, within reason, would you pay more for it?
Yes, because time is an asset.
You have done it, so
I've done it. No, it's true.
You have done it more than once.
It's true.
You have come back home and showed me, baby, look at this, and he has this, and he has that.
But the reality is there's a very good reason for that, and the reason is,
I know we're off track here, but you've done it.
You're proving a point. But in interior design, it's the same thing. When you go out there and you design whether it's a house or a condo, and I want to get into the pre-construction conversation about condos because it's very relevant. But if you go in and you're buying luxury, and the definition of luxury is something special, something different, something that goes beyond the norm.
And it's ready.
You have to pay for it. Now, why? Because in order to go from point A to point B, time is money. And time is the asset that clients at the luxury level are communicating in, valuing above everything, because $1 million never bought 1 second. No. So when you've got to go through a project, and projects, to understand, projects take, let's go through.
It varies. I mean, you can do a project within, we have done projects within a month.
Give us a framework of projects.
But we have done a house.
And let's actually flash up on a screen, because we're going to do this and we'll create this in the blog, to give you a sense of how long a project.
Let's say you buy
let's say you buy a $10 million shell.
Let's say that let's say that you buy a home that is considered a customized home by a lot of developers, but it's just another spec home in Miami.
Okay, let's use a spec home example.
lots of spec homes in Miami, and they are beautifully done, but they're still spec homes, which means that they are going to be general conditions, general this, general that. So if you buy a home like that and you want to personalize it, you want to make it, you're going to customize it, make it, perfect for you, that can happen really quick. Let's say we're going to furnish the house, we're going to, do some decorative lighting, stage it, make it look stunning, and we don't have to do any architectural changes. We're talking about within 6 weeks, we can make that happen.
That quick?
We have done that. We did a house, Di Lido in Venetian, that we were hired by the buyer, the seller, and they wanted to furnish the house and just, add some personality to it. The house was really well built. And we came in, we furnished the whole house, we did some wallpapering, a little bit of millwork. We did wall art and bedding and kitchen accessories, and ready to move in. And they sold it quickly. I think they sold it within 2 weeks. That was a risky decision by the seller and the realtor involved, but I guess they knew what we were capable of doing, and it worked really well. So that could be done within 6 weeks. It all depends on, the flexibility and the budget, of course, because if you want something really fast, you know that you're going to have to adjust to what the market is offering right now. So that's one of the options.
Let's get into the first part of the conversation, which is the condo conversation about pre-construction. Because in the last year, my David Siddons group has been very, very busy selling pre-construction. We've got Vita in Coconut Grove, St. Regis in Brickell, Five Park on the Beach, Paragon, also Miami Beach.
Beautiful projects.
Stunning projects, and even up into Pompano Beach, the new Ritz-Carlton up there, and
we have a unit.
Which we have a unit there. These luxury, and again, this is relevant because these are luxury condos. This is not middle of the road stuff. This is luxury condos. And as people have bought these units, they're looking at renderings and they're looking at the layup of it. And obviously, some of these are going to have to be. They are almost 99% of them going to have to be finished with an interior designer involved, like Design Solutions, in order to make the image that they've seen in the renderings come to life and be that, fulfilled luxury experience that they really, really want. And so with that in mind, when do they start talking to you, and what do you tell them?
Yeah, I usually tell clients that some people call me before, like let's say a year and a half before the developer is ready to close.
Okay.
That is too long, because first of all, what we are doing today may be very different from what we were doing a year from now in terms of the creativity part. And also prices change, either they can go more, they adjust for less or adjust for more, usually for more. But the reality is that if let's say you bought a unit, which is going to be closed on in a year from now, we should start working right away. I say a year is a very good timing, because what happens is that 90% of our projects, we need some type of permits. Even though a lot of the units are being delivered with flooring, most of them are not being delivered with, a lighting design. We need permits for everything. We need permits to breathe in Miami right now.
But do you need to pull permits?
When I say Miami, I'm talking about, South Florida.
Yeah.
We don't usually do a lot of work, up in Jacksonville. So I don't know how it.
But the building needs to have its CO before you can start pulling permits?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So you've got to get to that level.
When I say, but there's so much before CO, before we apply for permits.
CO, by the way, is certificate of occupancy.
But the fact is that there's so much that needs to be done before closing, before we apply for permits, that it's very important that people understand, and this is crucial. So there is timing for us to do the creative part, which usually takes up to 3 months if the client is really responsive. After the creative part, we have budgeting, which we already spoke about budget before creating the project, but after we create the project, then we price the project, right? So we find out how much it's going to cost if there is any type of remodeling involved in the unit, or even if it's only flooring and lighting and closets and curtains and, the basics. And then we like to price the whole project before we break ground. So if you approach us a year before, it's great that we have time to really create the project, price the whole project, get on the same page with the client, and then have all the paperwork ready, which there is technical plans that have to be developed by engineers. And once the package that is going to be submitted to the city, it's ready to go, and it should happen at the same time as the closing, then we can submit to the city the next day. If you wait to hire us once you do the closing, then you have 6 months that have to be, that we have to
And
work.
I've seen you catch things even before people close. And obviously you did an incredible unit.
That's what I'm saying, like a year before. We did
when you did 87 Park.
87 Park, we started working a year and a half.
Let's show the pictures on the screen right now. So if you're just listening to this and you're walking, actually look at your screen, look at the YouTube and watch the video. This is the unit that we finished at 87 Park. It sold over $20 million. It was exceptional. It was a one of a kind. It came into the market. The buyer walked through the door, saw the designs of what was being done, and boom, it was sold very, very, very quickly. So with projects, with condo projects, when you've got combined units, and I want to bring that into that conversation about the preparation you have before.
Yeah, but that You have to remember that project was even like we really participated from before they purchased the unit. And we were able to, and that is a very special situation because we were able to change the floor plan of both units while the developer was building the building. Do you remember that?
I remember it really well. I remember walking through with a hard hat with you into that project.
And the master bathroom of one of the units was facing the ocean, and it was taking a big part. It. So we because he bought 2 units, we're able to take the master bedroom and the bathroom to the back of the unit, which had the best view at night, and have the front of the unit facing the ocean during the day with the common areas. This
is great narrative for those who watch this. And again, we have an associated article on the best new construction penthouses in Miami. And what's fascinating about that type of product is that penthouses are a one of a kind anyway, but they are so often, even from the plans from what the developer has provided, are adjusted and a new floor plan is improved and created.
Everything is adjusted. The beauty of this project was that we were able to catch it before they actually built that floor.
Yeah.
So it's a very special situation because
which can happen today with a number of buildings.
Yeah, the client didn't have to pay for the adjustment of the unit. We worked with the architect of Terra Group.
Yeah.
And she was great, and she helped us adjust the unit to the client's needs, and it worked perfectly. And after that, we worked on everything else, on the design, on the finishes, and there were very specific needs and expectations for that unit. But I think that we need to basically try and understand about timing. I think the most important thing for your clients to understand, to really take in, is about timing. Timing is unfortunately a problem, not only in Miami, but when you're going to build something personalized, you need time to create. You need time to understand. Sometimes you don't even know what is important to you and your family. You have to speak with your wife or husband. You have to understand how old the kids are going to be when they move in. Because you buy something today and you imagine a baby room because your baby is 2 months old. But in a year and a half, 2 years from now, the baby is not going to be 2 months old anymore.
It's also the dynamic of the workspace, and homes have now become this, jewel of how people are living. And when you're having units which are, whether it's a combined unit, and I think this conversation is very useful for those who are looking at combined units and big penthouses, you're having these spaces where you're going to have a home office, you're going to have maybe a home gym, you're going to have multiple living rooms. So there's a lot of things going on. And when you start looking at that type of product and you want something really special, by talking to it starts with a conversation with me. And of course, very quickly, I translate that into, you really need to talk to the expert on this. This is my wife. This is what she does and has done for many years. This is where that whole process of curation of a personalized, functional, useful space for the moment that you will move in is something that starts early, starts in advance, and don't just wait till you get your CO and then go, okay, now let's do. Otherwise, you've lost a year. You've lost a year of time. So
not only that, but it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
Because when you really think about, I think that a lot of people, when they imagine the interior designer getting involved, it's late.
Yeah.
And then we start having ideas, and obviously these ideas are very specific and they need to be catered, and they have to be changed sometimes. Obviously, with the developer, that situation again was very special. Mm-hmm. We can really consider that we're going to be able to get a hold of the developer's architect and work on the floor plan to fit the client's needs. But when it comes to a spec home, or when it comes to a home that is being built from scratch, then you definitely, and this is a very important message that I have to all people out there that want to build a house. Regardless of who they hire, the interior designer should be involved from day one. That's my personal opinion. Because we, as designers, and I really appreciate the architects, and I'm nobody without them. But the reality is that the designers are the ones that really design for your needs, for
the internal space,
for the internal space, and obviously we do the external. It's not only interior design; we are interior designers and exterior designers.
Our house is a perfect example. Yeah. The integration of inside and outside is key. The profession
is called interior designers, so we're just going to stay as that. But the reality is that we, when we are hired by a client that has already hired the architect and the contractor, and we come in, it becomes sometimes a problem. That's why interior designers have such a bad reputation out there, because we come in and we make changes, right, in theory.
But also your limit, the perception of what you do is limited scope of what you really do. What you really do is exponentially, as you said, 10% of it is design, and people think, well, that's what you do. That's all you do. But what you actually do is logistics and organizing and creativity and coordination. And you are handling multiple people on a job site. I mean, again, you get to any job site and you realize that there is millwork guys and floor guys and lighting guys and all these different people.
That's a different subject, but yes, we can go to that in a minute. But what I'm trying to say is how important it is for the client to understand that the designer has to be with them from the beginning to establish the size of the rooms, what's going to fit here. Because when you get a floor plan from an architect and you see the space planning that they are suggesting, you don't know what size of couch they are proposing. And it may sound silly, but the reality is that how big is your family? What is the dynamics of your family? How do you watch TV? Do you really get together and watch movies all the time? Or not really? We're not into TV. We're more like entertainers. Or we have a lot of kids around. And how big is this table? Do we have circulation? These things, the architects don't think about it.
Yeah.
They think about giving you a beautiful home that has a stunning facade and it has furniture inside, but in terms of lighting, how can an architect decide and apply to the city with the lighting plan if they don't know what kind of furniture is going to be used?
Well, even before that,
how big the sofa is going to be, where the coffee table is going to be, or if we're going to have a specific art piece. Like what happened to us? We bought a beautiful piece of art, and we had to call the electrician and the drywall people and everybody else to adapt to the art that we bought, because we didn't have enough lighting for that art. So if you have a designer from the beginning and all these things are decided, and I'm not saying it may sound overwhelming that you have to, when you're building a house, you have to decide, everything, even like how your underwear drawer is going to be. But the reality is that that's what the designer is there for. And it should be a team from day one. Mm-hmm. I think this is the message. It's a team from day one, whoever the team is, but the architect, the designer, and the contractor working together to make the perfect home. And I think that we had this opportunity, and that's why I think our house is the way we want it to be, because we had the opportunity of participating with the architect and me as a designer, you as the realtor that found the right piece of land and the right property, and this group of people, this team, is mandatory from day one. Don't include an interior designer 9 months from the day that the house started being built, because plans are going to have to be changed, and then there's a time with the city for revisions, and that may delay the project. Or if the designer is going to have to work with what is there, which is not a problem. We do this every day, but it's not going to be ideal for you. We're not going to be able to really go, crazy with our creativity, which we love to do, which doesn't mean that it's going to be more expensive. It just means that it's going to be perfect for you if it's done at the right time.